All right, Nick, let's talk about the Detroit Lions. I think the Lions, building off an incredibly good season last year, made it to the NFC Championship game. Very impressive season for the Lions, but they knew where their weaknesses were from, and that was at the DB position. They go out, they draft Terry Arnold in the first round, but then again, they double down in the second round and get Ennis Rakestraw Jr., who has been very surprisingly an under-the-radar player who I think could potentially be a star throughout training camp, minicamp, and OTAs. Let's get into the article and we talk more about this on the other side. This, of course, is from over on Sporting News and says, Detroit Lions drafted a pair of cornerbacks in the 2024 NFL Draft, and while first-round pick Terrion Arnold has garnered much of the attention, second-round pick Ennis Rakestraw Jr. is a promising young player also. One of NFL analyst CBS Sports, Cody Benjamin, is very high on the Missouri product after his first season, as he labeled Rakestraw Jr. an under-the-radar player who could be a star. Terrion Arnold was the splash of the Lions' 2024 draft, surprising slide to Motown at the back of round one, Benjamin wrote, but Rakestraw's tenacious physicality could make him equally seamlessly fit for Dan Campbell, contender, especially depending on Carlton Davis' availability at corner. Nick, I think this is very intriguing because if you could hit on both of these cornerbacks, I think this would be one of the best drafts Detroit has had in a while, and they've had a couple of really good ones as well. I'm curious what your thoughts on this one are, but Detroit fans, in the comment section below, we've asked DB a bunch of times, so I'm going to ask you something a little bit different this time. Who is your favorite Lions second round pick of all time? A little bit trickier, might have to go look back through the annals, but let us know who your Lions favorite second round draft pick of all time was in the comment section below. And while you're down there, check the description below the video to check out some of our favorite NFL books. But Nick, what are your thoughts on Rakestraw and the Lions?
So I'm going to be totally honest. Obviously, a lot of the attention went to the Lions acquiring Carlton Davis and, of course, drafting Terrion Arnold. And just with that by itself, you're like, okay, this is a much, much better Lions secondary, specifically at the cornerback position. They're making smart moves with Brian Branch, like we already talked about this offseason. Everything seems to be coming together for the Lions based on those moves. But when you start looking at what Rakestraw is doing and where he fits in, he is kind of the final piece in the puzzle. A young, versatile, physically tough, mentally tough player who's willing to do whatever it takes to compete and win. This guy is a Detroit Lion, Dan Campbell kind of player. Like the number one bullet point on his draft profile, according to NFL.com, is highly competitive with quality toughness. When you think of the Detroit Lions under Dan Campbell, that sentence literally describes them to a T. Highly competitive with quality toughness. That's exactly what Rakestraw is, and I think he'll be a perfect fit into the Detroit Lions. Again, being a versatile piece on the secondary to play where needed, to compete where needed. And we already saw that through minicamp and OTAs. He played at the outside corner. He played at the slot nickel corner, a lot of situations as well. They're planning to use him a bunch of different ways. They monitored his reps a little bit because he's fighting back through some injuries. But Rakestraw is the kind of guy who's just going to come in and he's going to do whatever the defense needs of him, whatever Aaron Glenn needs him to do, and he's going to compete. He's going to be physically tough. He doesn't back down from anybody. The one concern about him, the reason he fell to the second round, is his ball skills, and he's a little bit undersized as well. But the primary concern is he only had one career interception in college, I believe. That's a little bit of a red flag. That's why he fell to the late second round. But in terms of tackling, toughness, willing to line up mano-a-mano against any receiver in college football, which again, in the SEC, he had a lot of tough battles. That's exactly what the Lions are getting in Rakestraw. And the fact that people are starting to notice that in Detroit and they're planning to use him just all over the place for their defensive backfield, I think it's a really smart move as well. And as much as Terrion Arnold gets all the attention, and rightly so, he's an outstanding prospect, Lions fans should pay attention to Rakestraw because he's going to be a critical component of this defense as well.
Yeah, Nick, and I think this is good, and you bring up a point about lack of turnovers, lack of production. Lions fans and Lions players and coaches are very familiar with that as well. If we go back a couple of years under the tutelage of a guy named Aubrey Pleasant, the Lions really weren't doing too good at the DB position as far as turnovers. Entered Deshae Townsend, the DB coach. He gets into the mix, and we automatically see a huge spike in talent and a huge amount of turnovers coming from a lot of these Lions DBs. So I think Rakestraw coming into a system, in my opinion, Deshae Townsend seems like a guy who really is great at coaching DBs to generate turnovers. So I think this could be a great system for him to come in if that is his one true weakness. So I think this is a great fit for the Lions, and I think we've seen the Lions do that a lot lately. Draft players who are really good fits for their organization, and at this time, he was also a big-time need for the Lions as well. So I think, again, this was a killer draft for the Lions, and I'm excited to see how Rakestraw turns out.